What it do? Hold on, let me change the color real quick. Green, green, the thing. Yeah, yeah. All right, look. This video is about handling self-pity. Now, this video I actually am very excited to make, okay? And the reason why I'm excited to make this video is because, come on, how many times have we felt the emotion hmm, of despair? How many times have we been in situations where you're just despairing? You're just like, oh my God, there's no way I can do this. There's nothing that can be done. What am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to go? Where am I supposed to go? You know? And if you felt that emotion, type down in the chat. Yeah, tell your story in the chat because we really connecting, with this. I can tell you for sure I felt it. I felt it when I was coming out of, well, when my father died. Not really. Not really, because I had already developed my consciousness to the point where I could see through illusions. So I didn't despair, but I didn't know as much, or I didn't have as much experience as I have now. Um, so I didn't have the words to put my feelings into. I didn't have the vessels, which is the words, to encapsulate how I truly felt. Um, but now looking back at that experience of my father dying and looking back at the experiences before then, I only ever felt desperation when I wasn't truly present with myself. That was something that I realized, um, you know, a while ago. I'd say maybe 3 years ago. I realized you get desperate when you're not with yourself, right? So what I wrote down is I wrote a hyphen. I wrote despair. Then I wrote hyphen love. Then I wrote hyphen transmuting hopelessness through self knowledge, which brings faith and destroys doubt. There we go. Now, these lower emotions, despair, shame, lack of courage, pride, all of these lower things, they're not bad. Okay. They're very useful. In fact, they are the backbone of creation because for every equal there's an opposite. So, or for every thing there's an equal and opposite. So, it's necessary that for the highest of emotions and the highest of vibrations, there must be the lowest of emotions and the lowest of vibrations. It's necessary that for when supreme knowledge is obtained, there also must be supreme ignorance. And supreme ignorance manifests in the form of not knowing yourself. When you know yourself, doubt disappears. When you know yourself enough, you are ahead of the current state of science. When you know yourself enough, you are ahead of the majority of the beings around you. And to them, you may become crazy, but in reality, it's not crazy. It's just a part of themselves that they are not aware of and therefore incapable of connecting with in you and in themselves. Hence why they can't do it with you. They can't connect with you at that level, at that depth. When you know yourself, the information which is constantly bombarding your being, constantly reverberating within every cell, becomes released to you. And it becomes a working knowledge that works alongside all of the experiences you've ever had and all of the experiences you are yet to have. And then you become entrapped and enmeshed. Let me say it like this: you become absolved in a mesh of probability and understanding. This is a sentient mesh that I'm talking about. It's a consciousness that you become integrated with to a deeper degree than you once were. Doing that, and after having attained that ability to feel what I'm speaking about, immediately you know what is it that I'm fearing? oh, I should have no fear. I fear not having a will of my own. That's the only thing that would make you feel fear is having to be subject to things which are unpleasurable to you against your will. That is what fear is. That only happens when you don't understand the responsibility that you've taken upon yourself by being a being in existence. Once you understand your responsibility by understanding either your power first, the power of your consciousness, or understanding your responsibility first and then growing into the comprehension of your power. Once you understand these things, fear is something that even if your body is paralyzed in the grips of it, you naturally are able to process to a greater degree and in a greater time frame, and therefore you can think through situations even when they're hard and on the fly, and even when no one else can do it, you'll be able to do it because you're detached from the ignorance, because you've raised your awareness to such a degree, you've expanded your understanding to such a degree that it encapsulates and enfolds the fear instead of running from it. The problem is we run from the fear, and then in doing so, we acknowledge the fear as a reality. And I'm telling you, absolutely, there is no such thing as a reality. The only thing that's a reality is something that's nothing. And it's contradictory. It makes no sense. It's not supposed to make sense. The universe didn't ask, the creative forces of the world did not ask to make sense to you. The entitlement is the issue, and it causes us to fear because we think we're entitled to something we have not worked for. You have not worked to obtain, many have not worked to obtain an understanding of the great universal principles. We just let people tell us what the principles are, but we don't actually go into the depths and seats of our being and sit there and let the principles tell us about what they are. Since we don't do that, we're not worthy to obtain any information. And of course, that unworthiness translates to vibrations of shame and fear around our trajectory, the path in which our life will take. We feel uncertainty about things that, if we were to just sit with ourselves in the heat of that battle and understand that these things only have the reality that I've given them, these things only have the energy that I've sustained them with through running away from them. If we understood that, how much different would the world be? Like I don't ever want anyone to just take my word for it. That is never ever what I desire. Because who I am is who I am. I've built myself to be who I am. No one can take that. The only thing they can do is add to it, even if they're giving it negative energy. They're adding to it because they're acknowledging the fact that I have something they don't, which is why they're sending energy my way in the first place. So, sending energy my way, good or bad, inevitably only works in my favor. That's wisdom that tells me that. And I could only communicate that to you through the experiences I have willfully put myself into to obtain that knowledge. Were not easy by the traditional standard of what easy is. Not at all. But they were worth it. It was worth it. All the pain was worth it. In fact, if I could go back, I would have done more to lean into the pain of handling the situation promptly. When I say situation promptly, I specifically mean sitting with myself deeper sooner. If I could have been 2 years old sitting with myself, how much farther would my existence have been? How much more hearts could I have reached? But I had to go on my path. So it's never too late to sit with yourself. In fact, as long as you got breath, you have the ability. But once you don't have breath, there's no guarantee. You do not have any more guarantees. The only way to have a guarantee is to, like I said in the last video that I made, which is prepare yourself. Prepare yourself by resting in your non existence. Prepare yourself by coming to understand the true depths of what it is to be. Only by doing that will you truly be able to understand what it is that makes someone despair. Will you be able to understand this self-preservation instinct that you continue to allow to rule your life? This fight or flight is what we call it oftentimes. That's when you're viewing it from a nervous system perspective. Spiritually speaking, internally speaking, if you had no nervous system, it would be the desire to keep your consciousness in a perpetual state that it's in, to keep it pristine and away from anything else that is not desired. And to do that, that requires effort. That requires you keeping your world qualified according to your specifications, which then requires a whole host of other things like a solid, firm boundary between yourself and the world. It also requires, which you can only have, by the way, you can only have solid boundaries if you are tapped into the world at large. When you know who you are, then you can have solid boundaries. If you really don't know who you are, you can't have solid boundaries. And you're inevitably destined to repeat certain cycles because you're going to do things and compromise yourself in ways you don't want to. And when you compromise yourself in ways you don't want to, just to keep people liking you or to keep yourself in certain situations, which to you at that time seem favorable, but in reality are not. When you do that, you lose respect for yourself. When you lose respect for yourself, this manifests as all these emotions: desperation, despair, shame. Of course, you're going to be shameful of what you do because you don't respect yourself enough to sit with yourself, enough to know yourself, enough to have firm boundaries between yourself and the world. One of the ways to do this is something that recently they've been calling shadow work. But sitting with yourself is the same thing as shadow work. You can't consciously do anything well until you know why you should do it well. And I'm telling you, the reason why you sit with yourself is because you'll never be anything unless you can. You'll always be less than what you could be, and you'll feel that. And at the end of your life term, you will say, wow, I was nothing that I could have been. That hurts. And it'll hurt. It'll sting and it'll burn. It'll rip you up inside. And it should. Because maybe next time you'll understand, this is a priority. I'm the priority. If I don't take care of me, if I don't give myself me first, if I don't give myself over to me first, I will inevitably give myself over to another. And when I do that, I'm in uncharted territory because another is another and their actions, I have no clue what it'll be. So understanding this, it helps you understand the transmutation process of changing despair or ignorance, which is the root cause of it all. Ignorance, not knowing a thing. When you don't know the depth of who you are, the empty spaciousness of your consciousness, when you don't know that that is what you are, you fall for all of the illusions, all of the changeable things. When I say illusions, specifically what I mean is changeable things. If things are always changing and you're telling yourself you're that, you will never have an identity that's so firmly rooted that it can't change. And therefore, you will always be, your nervous system will always be in fight and flight. You can never truly know calm. Therefore, you can never truly deeply sleep. Therefore, your body can never rest. Therefore, you can never truly heal. Think about all I just said. This is in order. It's a simple order. This is not complex. You just don't know what you need to know to do the things you need to do to get the result you want to get. But once you know the thing, it becomes simple, second nature. And that's another reason why despair is ignorance. Because all you need to know first is conceive of a possibility. You see the possibility. When you see the possibility, right, then you just need to know what you need to know to make that thing a reality. Because it already is a reality, or what I would call an unreality, in your mind, in your concept. It's within your understanding. Then you just got to focus on it. focus on it, and it'll bring itself into a clearer and clearer picture. And then you'll understand the steps you need to take in real time to obtain the said result. And that's with everything. Every single thing comes from that process. The entire universe comes from that process. All created beings come from that process. There's a meditative, silent period where you have to understand the thing. First, you got to conceive the thing, then you got to understand the thing in all of its vividness. Once you do that, you will literally see it materialize in front of you. And it'll happen in a way that you're not even aware of you were consciously doing it. You just walk the path and the result manifested in front of you because of the momentum that you've put behind your walk. The momentum just off the strength is what we call that. Just off, and from Chicago, because I'm from Chicago, just off the muscle, just off the strength of doing the thing repetitively, you bring your fruit. Just off the strength of timeless, timeless rain and wind and the cycle of sun and all the nutrients, the seed that's been planted 10 years ago sprouts to become a beautiful apple tree just off the strength of the repetitive process, repeating itself, repeating itself, repeating itself, and bearing its fruit. The fruit being the tree, and the apple fruit hanging from the tree. It's the same thing in your life. So there is no reason to say a thing's not possible because, trust me, not only is everything possible, and inevitability of that truth is that if you don't do it, someone else will find a way to make it happen. Someone else who actually wanted the thing will find a way to make it happen. Someone else who actually had the willpower and the ability to sit with their desire and see it from all its angles and do the thing necessary to bring it forth. Someone who had that will bring it forth, not a person who half asses anything. So there are many skills that have to be learned along this process of developing your awareness. And it's a step-by-step guide. I'm gonna be honest with you. It's pretty step by step, but the only thing that makes it difficult and different is the energy you've charged certain ideas with has to be broken up and redistributed into new ideas, new concepts, new understandings until you reach a concept that's so perfect for you that it doesn't need to be replaced and replicated because it doesn't disintegrate because the concept is solid and based upon a fundamental principle of your being. Until you get to that point, though, you will have to charge on, have to charge on, have to move on, have to go forward, have to continuously grudge on, but always know in your mind it'll be worth it because I will be able to interact with emotions that I once shied away from. And I'll be able to take those emotions and internalize them and breathe them into my being with full intensity, knowing that when I expel those emotions, when I expel those feelings and expel those ideas and that energy, I will be able to requalify it into something that I want it to be without fail. Trusting in your ability. And this is where, when you know your ability to do these things, when you know your ability to come up and conceive of an idea because you don't see yourself as a little limited body, but you know yourself as an infinite consciousness. When you know that, the infinite consciousness, because you and I are not separate. Up, cat's out the bag. I was trying not to admit that. I was trying to keep it, I was trying to keep it as P as possible. But eventually, when you talk about these things deep enough, you got to just bring the whole truth out. You got to just bring the whole truth out. And I don't know the implications of what I just said, what it will have. I have an idea, but I don't even want to deal with the full scope of that right now because I just want to give it as it is. And that's the way it is. In reality, when you know what you are and you know your ability to conceive of a thing and bring it into formation according to your conception, you'll stop walking around seeing yourself as some little thing, and you'll stop walking around treating other people and things like they're little things. And then when you see that, and when you understand that, and you deeply understand it, all of the doubt will disappear, because all of the fear will disappear, because you will know that you are setting yourself up with all of your actions to experience a future long after you're not in this body and you don't have this existence. Long after this existence, you are setting yourself up for something by living well here. You are setting your life up by living your days well in the future. Once you understand that, then you know a simple law of your being, which is consistency and repetition. Repetition, repetition. You're going to get the result that you're trying to get. When you know that, and when you've experimented, don't just take my word for it. Like I said, I don't ever want anybody to just be me. I don't like brainwashing people. Okay. I don't like doing that because I'm not government and I don't need to control that many people at one time. So, since I don't want to do that, because I know the karmic implications of it, I would rather you experiment with what I'm saying. I'm simply here to let you know that you're not weak, you're not small, you're not little. And your belief in that is not only something you have to perpetually reframe by fighting it. Fighting it every time it manifests in your consciousness, your littleness, your smallness, every time you see your limitation, you have to raise yourself, raise your consciousness to perceive the space that that thought exists in. Then you have to understand, oh, I'm consciousness. So the space that that thought exists in is me. And literally, the thought itself is just a nothing in the existence of me. When you understand that, then the good thoughts and the bad thoughts have no reality. Hence why I call it an unreality, because in nature, it is an unreality. They don't have any You think a good thought has more truth than a bad thought? If that was the case, only good would be. But since only good is not the reality, and that there is good and bad, it shows you that reality is what you say it is. And if you hold to yourself that I will never have a good job, I'll never have a lot of money, I'll never have a healthy body that functions well, I'll never be spiritually aligned, I'll never be mentally aligned, that's what you're going to get. So you have to muscle yourself up. Sit with yourself and see all the negativity in you. Every single negative thought and emotion that comes up, and usually those ones are the forefront. The good ones don't come up, they're at the bottom. They need to be taken by force. So if you sit with yourself and you just see all the negative thoughts, all the negative feelings, all the negative experiences, and you just write them down. Even when it's painful, just write them down. I know it's painful because you've given it that much energy, and it actually physically, and you need to understand this, affects your nervous system. Your nervous system has been conditioned by the habituated thoughts. So it actually feels good to think negatively about yourself. And you have to reframe. It's like an addiction. It is an addiction. You have to reframe your entire understanding of who you are and your identity so that when you rest and perceive this negativity and this negative energy, you have to say, this is not more true than the positive energy. I have just given more attention to the negative, and therefore, this is why the negative is here. And when I stop giving attention to the negative and force myself to see the positive, which is present, but very hard and not apparent, it's very hard to see and it's not apparent. The good is present, but it's not apparent. So when I force my consciousness to pay attention to that, at first it's going to be hard. Of course, since you've given the energy to the negative is going to be easier for you to continuously contemplate on. But through time, after bringing your consciousness back, bringing it back, and that's always what it's going to be for your life, by the way, is bringing it back. Your body will get out of alignment. Your mind will get out of alignment. These things will come out of you. Life will come at you to develop you, of course. And your ability to bring it back showcases your mastery over yourself. To come back, to come back. There's no such thing as perfection. There is only that which is, and that which is perfection. Mankind's idea of completely flawless, that doesn't even exist in nature. There's no tree which does not have some inherent flaw in the jungle. It has its own individual expression, its own eccentricity. That's not a flaw because there's no such thing as a perfectly white teeth, perfectly straight teeth in nature. That's a thing mankind has created because of their incessant egotism. But that only leads you down one path: self destruction. I'm not saying this. Every person before me has said it, and like I say all the time, tens of thousands of people will say it after me. So me saying it is truly of no actual fruit. Besides, it reaches who it can reach, and who it doesn't reach, they didn't hop on a train. I know what I know for me, and if you want to take this information and apply it to you, and then see, obviously through experimentation, don't never just trust nobody. You experiment for yourself and you see, then you'll naturally understand. Okay, this is what he meant. Okay, and this is how I can refine my concept of what I am. And when you do that, you'll begin to this is the thing though. Let me not give you all this. And I'm glad I waited to the end, right, for this. I'm gonna give you this. I gave you that, right? I was told to give you that. I felt it in me that I could give you that, but I also want to tell you the bad because there's bad that comes with that. And this is what it is. And this hurt me. Uh uh, at a point in time until I realized the emotion's more important. But the bad is that means all of your friends, all of your family, and all of the negativity they keep in themselves because their consciousness too, that they refuse to sit with, you're going to begin to see that. Your perception of the world is going to get subtler and subtler until you perceive the true nature of things. And then everything that you've been taught, all the ideas and concepts of what's true and what's false, what's good and what's bad, what's right and what's wrong, will naturally present themselves to you in the space. And when you see them in that space, you're going to analyze them. You're going to see, wow, they don't have any reality. And if you're not ready for this, you can go insane. You can go insane if you're not ready for this. But it's not true insanity. What it is disillusionment. You see something that anyone else in the world does not see. People do not see this, and this is why they suffer. You see the suffering of mankind, and they're trying to tell you it's not suffering, but in reality, you know it's suffering. It is suffering. Oh, you can't tell me it's not suffering to not be able to block negative thoughts. Negative thoughts which bite at you and eat at you and claw at you your entire life. That's suffering. The inability to choose your reality, the inability to choose what is true for you, the inability to choose your thoughts, the inability to let go. All of that is suffering, and you cannot tell me any different. And when you get to that point, if you were at that point already, you know what I'm talking about. But when you get to that point, you will know that that is suffering. And if you don't trust yourself enough, you'll fall back into despair. You'll fall back into paying attention to what they say is true because that's my mom, that's my dad. But they don't know what they don't know. And all they can do is cope with what they don't know. But the stronger thing would be to lean into what you don't know and actually try to learn what you don't know. And that's where we go back to my video, Listen and Learn, that I had just made, where I talk about how to do that. So if you are interested in how to do that, go listen to that video because that'll be very useful for you. I'll probably link it up in this guide somewhere, try my best. But, you know, I said this video was about handling self pity, and that's self pity. Self pity is despairing, feeling that desperation for yourself, and not understanding that there's a solution. If there's a problem, there's a solution because I told you of universal law. There's an equal and opposite. I didn't tell you this. Newton told you this. Not only did Isaac Newton tell you this, every person besides me, in every individual who knows something, who's ever accomplished a thing, has had to use the creative power in them. I'm pointing it here, but it really isn't here. The creative power in them to obtain results. Even when everybody else around them was like, that's not possible. You're insane. You're crazy. No. In the midst of the heat of battle, had to come up with a solution because they simply raised their consciousness to the point where they could perceive a solution. And after raising your consciousness to be able to perceive a solution over a long enough period of years and years, you are just confident in your ability to do so. And when you know your ability to do so, you rely on it wholly. You know that it cannot fail you. It's not like, the things of the outer world which fail you because they themselves are not, you know what I'm saying? Your self realization cannot ever fail you, ever. That's why it's the most important thing. That's why it's the gateway to riches, money, love, connection, all the things that we say we want, and truthfully, the things that make us feel happy. So you don't ever just want the individual thing. You don't want the car just to have the car or the house just to have the house. What you want is the realization, which will bring you the car and therefore bring you the satisfaction, which if you did not have that realization, you would not get. Because in that satisfaction is peace and rest. We want the ability to have the excitement, but we also want the rest after the excitement. We don't want to be in a perpetual state of activation. That does not sound fun. That does not sound fun. We want both. And that shows you part of your dual nature. So rather than be hopeless, have hope and see that and know that and practice. Be willing, have courage. This is the thing. Be courageous. Have the courage. Have the courage to stand alone. Have the courage to try. Have the courage to put the effort forward necessary to create a solution. Have the courage to believe that there's a solution. And when you do that, you'll be blessed. You'll be blessed with the solution. And all your doubt will be destroyed after you practice that long enough, and your self-realization and the realization that comes with seeing your power in action will give you a bliss that no other thing could give you. So if you like the video, you know what I'm saying? Like it down below. If you got something to talk about, you got something to say, you want some conversation, talk about it down below. If you have not subscribed yet, I really don't know what to tell you. Like I said, we got motion. We are on motion. We are not playing. This is not a game. We are really trying to get it in. All right. Because it get crucial out here. It's not getting no better, in the world. And we need this. We need this self-realization. We got to overcome these generational and these cultural blockages and boundaries that we ourselves feel within us. And that's the only way to make the world a better place. So if you are down with that mission, subscribe. Uh, and also put down below in the comments, I'm down with Renaissance Nation. You know what I'm saying? Down with the nation. Yeah, you down with the nation. That's tough. All right. If you're down with the nation, put that down below. Like, comment, subscribe, all that, and I'll see you on the next one. Yeah.